بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على عبده ورسوله الأمين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. We move on to talk about some of the hadiths that talk about forbidden types of marriages. Last time we spoke about the marriage of shigar, and now we talk about another marriage which is forbidden, hadith number 309. And who will read this for us? Yes, Akhi.
Ali bin Abi Talib radiyallahu ta'ala anhu reported that the Allah's Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam prohibited on the day of Khaybar the contracting of temporary marriage with women and the eating of the flesh of domestic donkeys.
Okay, this hadith talks about two issues. The first one is temporary marriage. In Arabic it's called mut'ah. And the second issue is the flesh or consuming donkeys. So let's talk about the first issue. Part of the marriage that is haram, that is forbidden, is mut'ah. What is mut'ah? Mut'ah is temporary marriage in the sense that there is consent and agreement from both parties that the marriage would last only for this period. And when this period is over, by default, they're separated. And this kind of marriage was permitted at the beginning of Islam. In the year of Khaybar, the Prophet ﷺ prohibited it. That was on the 7th year of Hijrah. And in the year of Awtas in Fath Mecca, on the 8th year of Hijrah, the Prophet permitted it for a short period of time and then prohibited it forever. Now, this is the consensus of all scholars of Islam. And to us, Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, this is considered to be zina. This is considered to be pure fornication and zina. Why? What's the difference between going to a woman and saying to her, listen, I'll marry you for 2 hours, and the price of your mahar would be $100, and after the 2 hours are over, it starts at 10 o'clock, ends at midnight. She said, I agree. We go to the mullah, he writes a contract, and that's it. What's the difference between this and going to a prostitute with the agreement of her pimp or whatever, and making a contract and khalas, 2 hours and it's over? It's the same thing. One would say, okay, why was it permitted? Akhi, there is a difference between when the Prophet permits it, alayhi salam, and when he prohibits it. It was needed and specific time, and the Prophet permitted it. So our religion comes from the Quran and the Sunnah, not from our logic. Now it was completely and totally prohibited, so it remains as it is. Marriage between a man and a woman has to be permanent with the intention of having it permanent. Divorce may take place, but not as in an agreement, as a contract. After 2 months, khalas, she can leave you and say, without even saying ma'as-salama, without saying bye-bye. She leaves. Why? The contract is over. This is not marriage. This is, nowadays, it's considered to be zina. Before, it was acceptable at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, but he prohibited forever after that. Now, is this similar to when a person marries a woman and he intends to divorce her but he doesn't tell her? It's an issue of dispute. Some say that this is totally permissible. Why? Because no one knows what's in my intention. So when I propose to a woman to marry her and we make the marriage contract, for example, a student goes to another country to study his BS or his BA. He's going to stay there for maybe 5 years. And he's unable to get married. He doesn't have the money to get married from his country, or women in his country will not go out with him and travel. So he marries a local. He goes to the parents and they say, okay, we accept. And he intends, after I finish my course or my studies, I will divorce her and go back to my country. Does anybody know? This is something in me. Some scholars say that this is halal, no problem, because there is a possibility that he may change his mind and he will take her back with him. Other scholars say that this is not permissible and the marriage is invalid. Why? Because he has this intention. But this is weak. The marriage as a contract is intact. The third opinion, which is what I feel comfortable with, is that the contract is correct, the marriage is correct, but the person is sinful for keeping this information from her and from her parents because they're Muslim. I am deceiving them. If I tell them that I want to marry your daughter, but after my course is over, I'll divorce her and leave, would they give me their daughter? Answer is no. They will feel that this is not marriage, this is playing around. So I feel that the person is sinful and he should not do that. If a person was in need to get married in such circumstances, let him not intend that he will divorce her. You never know. Maybe after 2-3 years, she becomes your wife that you love truly, and you would do anything to get her back with you. And that is the best case scenario. But is it mut'a? No. Mut'a is a contract that is limited by time, mutual agreement, and after it, there is no iddah. Usually there is no any financial obligations. The contract is severed and cut immediately. As for the donkey's meat, this was permitted before Khaybar. On the day of Khaybar, in the 7th year of Hijrah, the Prophet ﷺ, while they were cooking a number of donkeys and pots were boiling, the Prophet ordered one of his companions to go and tell them that this is haram. You have to throw all the meat out and break the pots. He would show that everything related to it is to be disposed of. So the companion said, "Oh, Prophet of Allah, can you reduce this? Can we, instead of breaking it, just wash it?" And the Prophet abrogated ﷺ the previous command and said, "You may wash it." So this is what deals with the issue of nikah al-mut'ah. Now, there are a number of other nikahs or other marriages quite popular nowadays, especially in Arabia. I don't know if you've heard of this, al-misyar. Does it ring a bell? Zawaj al-misyar. We have zawaj al-urfi. And you have to understand what this means in order to judge it. Zawaj al-urfi in some countries, Islamic countries, has a number of meanings. The first permissible meaning is urfi marriage, is when a man marries a woman with the approval and consent of her guardian, so all the conditions and all the pillars of marriage are fulfilled. Then why do we call it urfi? Because it is not registered in the government. So what is the ruling on this marriage? The marriage is complete and intact and valid. However, it is not recommended. Why? Islamically, it's correct, true. But Islam also looks after the welfare of the woman and her children. Sometimes such a marriage takes place, they have children, 2-3 years later, the man flees the country and she's not divorced and she has children. She goes to complain to the government or to the embassy. She has no documentation to prove that. So this Islam tries its level best to protect the woman and her welfare and the welfare of her children. We have a short break. Stay tuned, and inshallah we'll be right back. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. So we spoke just before the break about al-urfi marriage, is when a man marries a woman with the approval and consent of her guardian, so all the conditions and all the pillars of marriage are fulfilled. Then why do we call it urfi? Because it is not registered in the government. So what is the ruling on this marriage? The marriage is complete and intact and valid. However, it is not recommended. Why? Islamically, it's correct, true. But Islam also looks after the welfare of the woman and her children. Sometimes such a marriage takes place, they have children, 2-3 years later, the man flees the country and she's not divorced and she has children. She goes to complain to the government or to the embassy. She has no documentation to prove that. So this Islam tries its level best to protect the woman and her welfare and the welfare of her children, that has all the pillars, all the conditions fulfilled. The problem is that it's not registered officially. Islamically is sound and correct, but we do not recommend it because Islam cares about the women and the children, and if not registered in the government, then men could just simply run away and she would be hanging without any rights. The second type of urfi marriage, which is widely known among the people in some Muslim countries, Arab countries, is the marriage that takes place without the knowledge of people. And this usually happens in universities. When a woman or a girl goes to mixed universities, which is haram in Islam, and they're having mixed classes, etc., the inevitable happens. Man likes girl, girl likes boy. So they meet, they go to classes, and then they know that financially they're unable to get married, and their parents would not approve of them getting married before finishing. So he goes to her and says, listen, you love me, I love you, we love each other, so let's marry. She said, but we don't have any wali, any guardian to give me in marriage to you. He says, khalas, Allah is our wali. Okay, what witnesses? Allah is our witness. So they get married, so they think, and they live with each other. This is not marriage, this is zina. This is boyfriend, girlfriend scenario. And this is one of the major sins in Islam. They call it urfi because nobody knows about it, except their friends in college and school. The father doesn't know, maybe the mother knows, but the guardian does not give his approval, so they bypass him and do this. Another marriage is known as al-misyar, and this appeared lately in Arabia, where a married person is interested in marrying another woman, but he is unable to financially support her, or he cannot make it public because his wife would divorce him or would make problems for her. So he marries in secrecy from his wife, and he tells his second wife that I will not be dividing a night here and a night there because then my first wife will kill me. So I will only come at certain times of the day. What is the ruling on this? Again, scholars have different opinions. The most authentic opinion is that if the intention of the two parties is just to have fun and to marry for the sake of sexual intercourse, etc., this is not permissible. But if their intention is that this period is temporary until he is able to furnish a house or provide a house for her, or until he can break the news easily to his wife, this is permissible, especially when the need is there. If a woman has certain and specific circumstances in her life, such as a woman who's 35 or 40 years of age, she's living with her parents or with one of them who's critically ill and needs someone to take care, and there's no one to take care of the mother or the father except this woman. And she's eager to get married, but she cannot get married and leave her father or mother. In her case, such a marriage would be excellent because it fulfills her natural needs and also gives her time to take care of her father or mother or whatever circumstances she has. Likewise, a man who is unable to marry a second wife publicly because his wife would go insane or would kill him or would do something or would demand divorce, and he has children, but he has the need to get married again. And this is natural. So for him, this scenario would fit, providing that he's sincerely interested in marrying a correct marriage, not temporary and not for the sake of playing around. In this case, inshallah, it is permissible. We open the floor for any questions, if you have any. Yes.
Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh.
Salam.
In this case, if anyone does not know about his second marriage, and if a person dies, how the wealth is distributed among the wife and the children, because the second wife is not known to anyone.
What you do not know of, Allah would not burden you. If a person dies having a second family, a wife and children, And the main family, the first wife and children, do not know anything about this. If he dies, it is the responsibility of the second wife and the children to go and introduce themselves and tell them that this man is our father, this man is my husband. But if they don't do this, the first family has no burden or sin on them because they don't know. They think that their husband or the head of the family died. They didn't know that he was married again. Now, if this was discovered 2-3 years afterwards, and after distributing the inheritance, 2-3 years later, they discover, oh, he had another wife and children. Those who took their inheritance, they must bring it back and to be divided again equally to the 2 wives and the 3 wives or 4 wives and the children, no matter how many. And that is why it is essential to publicly announce a person's marriage. In Islam, secret marriage is not permissible. When Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, came back and the Prophet said, where were you? And she said that I was in a wedding. And he said, did you have some entertainment? Nasheed, duf. And he instructed that weddings should also be publicized by duf. When you're in a house and you hear the duf being played and women chanting, or you see signs of jubilation and happiness, what would you say? What is this? And they say, it's the marriage of so-and-so to so-and-so. So this makes it public. This is what Islam promotes. Yes, brother.
We see nowadays people go for multiple marriages for fancy and for satisfying their personal desires. I mean, rather than the Prophet married for certain purpose. Can you elaborate, please?
What you see is people are marrying for
fancy, for the personal desire, you know, for...
Okay, first of all, no one marries for a reason that does not relate to desire. No one marries because, wallah, this family is good, I'm going to get married to them. I don't care if their daughter is black or white, short or tall, ugly or beautiful. I'm just wanting to be related. No one does this. Whenever you marry, you choose something that would fulfill your desires. Plus, if she's coming from a noble family, that's a plus. And if she is beautiful, oh, excellent. And if she's rich, you've got it made. And if she's practicing and knows the Quran and Hafiz, and she knows Bukhari and Muslim and a student of knowledge, this is from paradise, direct, coming down to you. Usually you will not find someone with all of this. So it is permissible to marry, and you are permitted to have reasons behind your marriage. And that is why the Prophet says, a woman is married for 4 reasons. For her lineage, for her nobility, for her beauty, for her wealth. And in one of the narrations, the Prophet said, nobility and lineage is the same. For her religion, religious practice. And the Prophet says, get the one with the religious practice, otherwise your hands would be dusted, as if you don't have anything. So there's no problem in marrying a woman for something that you desire. But the Islam channels it and tells you, marry the one who has the religious commitment as a priority. If these things follow, alhamdulillah, but if not, then you have gained what would fix and help you in life. Any questions?
So we know today that there is no trust between people. So for a man to, if he wants to marry a righteous woman, can he keep a spy so that she means to see if she is truly a righteous woman or not? Because in front of him, the woman and her family may act like a hypocrite. Like they may be too righteous in front of him, but behind the back they may do all the haram things. Can we keep a spy that so that we come
spy?
to...
Okay. So the question of the brother is, if I'm interested in marrying a woman, can I hire a private investigator to go and check their garbage and to put cameras so that I would know exactly what's happening? Allah says in the Quran, وَلَا تَجَسَّسُوا Surah Al-Hujurat. Do not spy on one another. Allah Azza wa Jal ordered us to judge people by what appears from them. So if I go and speak to the family and they look okay, I investigate and everybody's saying that they're okay and giving me plus signs, mashallah, everything is fine. It is forbidden for me to go and spy on them. And I would also reverse this. How would you feel if they send someone to spy on you? How would you feel if they sent someone, not even to spy on you? If on the spot, her father tells you, open your laptop. Let me see your mobile phone. Let me go into your PDA and check your album. Let me check your Facebook account. How would you feel? You would not accept this, would you? Would any of you? Everyone has secrets. Not that you're doing sin, but no one wants to allow people to look into his own private things. So Islam totally prohibits spying. It totally prohibits doubting the intention. Sometimes you speak with someone and he says, no, you intended this. And you have this ill thoughts in you. How do you know the ghaib? Does anyone know the unseen? And that is why the Prophet ﷺ was very angry with Usama ibn Zayd when he was fighting a kafir in war. And this kafir killed so many Muslims. And as they were having this duel and they were battling, the kafir went to a corner and then he was cornered. And he knew that he's going to be killed. So he said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. And Usama killed him. And the Prophet was outraged, was very angry. You killed him. You killed him after he said, La ilaha illallah. He said, Prophet of Allah, we're in battle. He killed so many Muslims. It's not a random thing. We are fighting. When he felt that I'm going to kill him, he said, La ilaha illallah. Definitely you and I believe that he did this only to protect himself. Isn't that true? Yet the Prophet said, what will you do with La ilaha illallah on the Day of Judgment? You're not allowed to look into his heart. You're allowed to only judge what appears to you in the exterior. That is why it is totally prohibited for you to spy. This is all the time we have until we meet next time. Fi amanillah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.